Hello and welcome again to Howard's Horse Handicapping. This is Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. We've got a great show planned. The first thing you need to do is right about there. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'd like to grow this channel as best as possible, and I need your help. So please subscribe down below in the corner of the screen there. Also, I need you to comment down below the video player on anything that we talk about here today or any improvements or things you like about the show as my YouTube channel continues to grow, and I couldn't do it without your support. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Also, please follow me on Twitter at @hkravitz. You can see the spelling there on the scroll below. My Twitter handle followers have increased tremendously. And every Saturday, I send out adjustments to my picks after scratches and changes on Twitter. So it's very important that you follow me on Twitter as well to get updated picks on our big race days on Saturday. So before we get into the the review of what happened this past weekend at Oaklawn, I want to talk about what's going on this Thursday night. So this Thursday night, very important, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, I'm going to go back to my YouTube channel for a live stream show. Right here on my YouTube channel, we're going to talk about a fantastic day of racing at the fairgrounds. It's their biggest day of the year. This Saturday, they have several stake races, and it's highlighted by the Louisiana Derby, which is the first 100 point prep for the Kentucky Derby. It's a huge race day they have at the fairgrounds. And the great thing about this channel now that I've been on for a while is you can go back and look at what happened a month ago. So, what happened a month ago? A month ago, I did a preview and review of the Louisiana Derby Stakes preview day. So, a lot of these horses that ran a month ago, I previewed and then reviewed after the races occurred on my YouTube channel. So a great thing to do before we meet on Thursday is to go back and look at my review of the races from a month ago at Fairgrounds. You can find them on my YouTube channel because we're going to be talking about many of those horses again on Saturday, along with some fresh faces as well. So the first thing I'd like to do today, we're going to talk about the 4 stake races that happened at Oaklawn this past Saturday. Now, before we get into the races, Saturday was a very interesting day. There was some favorites, and there were also some huge long shots that knocked me and probably a lot of people out of the pick 5. But I was able to personally recover with a good bet and prediction in the Rebel Stakes, which we will talk about in great detail. So we're going to talk about those 4 stake races at Oaklawn. We'll watch some uh, reviews of the race, and I will talk about some comments and some very interesting trips and interesting jockey decisions also that occurred as we watched the replays. So let's go ahead and jump right in to the first stake race. So the first stake race that we are going to look at, as you can see here, was the filly and mare race that was won by She Dares the Devil. This was the Azeri race 5. And we're going to go ahead and watch the replay. And when we watch these replays, we're going to watch them without sound so I can talk through them. But as you can see there, Latruska was the favorite, a barely over She Dares the Devil. Latruska was 3-2. And I talked about Latruska on the preview show, and I said that 3-1 morning line was an absolute joke, and I was correct. I did not put a win bet on Latruska because she was just too low. I was hoping maybe to get 2-1. 3-2 was too low for me, but I thought she was definitely the top choice for me in this race. And there's some also very other talented horses in this race, obviously. So let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of this race because what happened was very interesting. So as you're going to see, as they break from the gate, it was a very nice day. Latruska is the 3, and surprisingly enough, the 5, She Dares the Devil, actually outbreaks Latruska and goes right to the lead. I thought that was an excellent decision by Giroux just to go ahead to the lead there. And you see Latruska now a little bit headstrong there, right there in third, but getting a clean trip. And you see Envutante, who I did not like in this race because Ken McPeak did not have good stats off the layoff, is sitting a very nice trip. And She Dares the Devil with a monster hold there, as you can see, on the lead, extremely comfortable, and a slow first quarter of 23 and 4. And you see Motion Emotion, who was 21 to 1 in this race for Steve Asmussen, was in fourth. And then a horse that I thought was a little bit interesting in this race, uh, get uh, get what ails you. The 4 was in the back here. Unfortunately, not running into a very fast pace. As you see, they go 47, almost in 4 to the half. She Dares the Devil, the Kentucky Oaks winner, up on top here, getting a very comfortable trip. And now you see Latruska making her move. And she is not known as passing horses. So as you see here, ranging up 3 wide, Evutante in between, asking. I thought overall this was a very good effort by Latruska, considering she's not really a closer. You see they go 111 and 3, and Latruska actually goes in about the 6th path, really inexplicably. I'm not really sure why that happened, but she went very wide. And now you see it's pretty much a match race between She Dares the Devil and Latruska. Envutante hangs around there for third. She Dares the Devil, or excuse me, uh, Get What Ails You ends up getting third. And you can see they go right to the wire. It was a fantastic race. And She Dares the Devil barely hangs on over Latruska. And I'll just let it run here. And you see, excuse me, let me just back that up a second. And you can see the 4 uh, actually comes on for third. And I mentioned this on Twitter. I actually think she runs a better race than it looks. You see the fractions there were overall pretty slow. We already talked about the fractions. And again, I've talked about this many times on this show. Take a look at the internal splits because it's very important to look at that. So you see the final times here and the incremental splits, and Get Rid of What Ails You finished in 30.41. She was the best closer in this race into a slow pace. And I know this is talked about quite a bit, as it should be talked about. And someone who I have a lot of respect for, Jonathan Kinchin, talks about, especially in turf races, slow pace races and horses that close well into a slow pace. And we'll just go ahead and look at again, as you can see the incremental pace here. Uh, get Rid of What Ails You closed best into that slow pace and ran on for third. Now, if you want to say she clunked up for third, fine. But I actually thought she ran a very good race. I still think she's interesting going forward. And I thought Latruska also ran a very good race. So I don't want to take anything away from She Dares the Devil. She was coming off a layoff. She's a very classy animal. She ran very well. But within the context of the race, I think you have to give a lot of credit to Latruska, who closed really for the first time, even though it was only a few lengths back. She is a pure speedball. And also, Get Rid of What Ails You closed well into a slow pace where the race didn't really set up for her. Now, what's going to happen going forward? A month from now is the Apple Blossom. It's on Arkansas. It's the day before the Arkansas Derby, I believe, the Friday before the Arkansas Derby, and it's the one of the biggest filly and mare races of the year for older horses on dirt. It's a grade one. I have to imagine a lot of these horses are going to be running back in that race, along with possibly Monomoy Girl, and I really hope Swiss Skydiver. If all these horses hook up, in that race, wow, that would be something to watch. It would be an incredible race. I really hope Monomoy and Swiss Skydiver hook up at some point this year before the Breeders' Cup, because I think these are the top 2 older filly and mares in the country. And really, Monomoy Girl's career obviously is well established, but I think Swiss Skydiver is an absolute monster. She won the 1 mile Beholder Stakes out at Santa Anita this past weekend also. And if they hook up, that'd be a great race. But Latruska's in there also. And if there's a lot of speed side on, I really think Get Rid of What Ails You is going to be very interesting in the Apple Blossom. Maybe not to win, but definitely get in the money at possible double digits, depending again on the field size and the pace scenario, etc. So that's going to be a very, very interesting race going forward. That was the Azeri on Saturday. Now let's go ahead and look at the next stake race of the sequence. Now they did run the Essex Handicap for older horses. We're not going to talk about that race. I don't think there are any uh, fantastic horses coming out of that race that are going to do major damage this year. I'll just show you the result of the race though. Silver State uh, barely hung on over the second longest shot on the board, Radar Superstar, who has resurrected his career. Really, one of the big stories out of this race to me is that Tax was scratched. He had a foot issue. I believe he stepped on something the day or two before the race. I think on Friday. It was sort of a freak thing. Um, Danny Gargan said they're going to give him a week or two out of training, and he'll be back to be just fine. But Tax out of the race was sort of the big name in that race, and he scratched. So congratulations to Silver State for winning the Essex. Let's move on to actually let's talk about race 8 very quick. Race 8 was the beginning of the pick 5. I had Special Reserve as a B horse. This was a new claim for Michael Maker. I thought in the preview show I talked about this on Thursday. There was a ton of speed, but there was one big scratch in the race, the number 4 scratched out of the race, and I mentioned on Twitter, which is why you need to follow me on Twitter. I talked about this on Twitter that with that scratch, I thought that might change the complexion of the race, and sure enough, Drew was very aggressive on Special Reserve and won over the favorite, won for Richie at 8-1. And I was very happy with that start, really, because Special Reserve was a B for me, and we got a price to start our pick 5 at 8-1. Then things got a little crazy. And before I talk about uh, Carlos L, I think it's important to mention a few things. So I don't know about you folks out there, but for me, when I lose pick 4s, pick 5s, it just for some reason invariably happens to be with bombs on the lead. I really don't know why this is happening. I know what people are going to say. Well, Howard, why don't you just start playing speed horses that are on the lead all the time? Okay, well, sometimes I do put speed horses on the lead. I'm not afraid to put bombs on the lead if I think they make sense. But I really didn't think in this particular case that Carlos L made sense. We're going to go ahead and talk about the winner here, who was 47.7 to 1 in this race and was the longest shot on the board here by far, was not even close. But let's look at Carlos L's past performances a little bit. Now, of course, the top line, the 92 that he ran, was the race that he won. But let's go back and look at Carlos L before. Uh, this was a horse that first was racing in Panama, which there are some good South American horses, and Richard Mandela and some other trainers, especially out west, would be known back in the 80s and 90s for importing fantastic South American horses. But Panama, number one, is really not where the best South American horses run, number one. And number two, it's really hard to know what kind of quality this horse was facing. Now, on May 26th of 2019, he did win a Grade 1 by 13 lengths, going a mile and 5/16. I mean, I guess if you win a Grade 1 by 13 lengths anywhere in the world, that's pretty impressive. But again, it's still really hard to know how good he is, and that was during his 3-year-old year. Then he came to the United States. He ran a 92 at Parks in his first race. Okay, that's pretty good. But since then, he has not been good. You see 82.77, and he did win on the slop going 6.5 at Hawthorne. And the last race at Oaklawn, he was squeezed at the start and he was ranked early and he didn't get the lead. But even if this horse got the lead, it was still hard, at least for me, and obviously most bettors, to figure that he was classy enough to win this race. I really thought Plainsman, the 4, who ended up finishing a bad beaten uh, 6 by 8.5 lengths, was the better of the speeds, and therefore I used Plainsman as an A, along with Tenfold, who ended up just being Tenfold again. And Campaign was my other A, just did absolutely no running at all. Treasure Trove was a B for me. I thought he was very interesting. He finished 4th. And my C's, one of them finished last. I just threw in there, split the wickets. And the other C was Lone Rock, who actually ran a big race and almost won. So when your two top choices, in this case was Tenfold and Campaign, really didn't do too much running, although Tenfold made a run, but it really was non-threatening. And the third choice in the race, Plainsman, also really didn't run well. Things happen, and sure enough, things happened in this race to the detriment of my pick 5. But if anyone had Carlos L, congratulations and good on you for having this horse. So the one thing that I can glean from this race that we've talked about is speed is very dangerous. I mean, we all know that. You see, Plainsman the 4 broke fine, and he could have had the lead if he wanted, but Carlos L just took control. And we're not going to show the whole race. This is a very long race, obviously, but you see they went 24 and 24 and almost 2. That pace is fair enough. And you see the half is 48 and 2. Again, that's not crawling. That's pretty fair, I would say. And right here, it's Plainsman ranged up. I was really thought Plainsman had an excellent shot to win this race. I mean, if you like Plainsman, he's exactly where you want him to be right now. Lone Rock also in a very comfortable spot, as well as Treasure Trove. Now, Tenfold is all the way back here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. He is a closer, but I thought he might be a little bit closer than this to the pace. Campaign was completely off the screen, made no run whatsoever. I have no idea what is going on with Campaign right now. To me, that was a baffling race, considering I thought his last race was a prep. But you see Carlos L here on the lead, 47 to 1. Plainsman is stalking. We'll go ahead and let the race run through. They go a mile and 139. Again, that's relatively slow, but they're not walking on the lead. And this is where the real running starts. And again, if you have Plainsman, the 4, or Treasure Trove, or really Lone Rock, you've got to feel pretty good about where you're at right now. And right now, Plainsman ranges up, and so does Lone Rock. And right now, they're 3 across the track, with Treasure Trove sitting a perfect trip there in 4th. And you see the 1 Tenfold making his move. Carlos Hulk is a little bit wide in the turn. Plainsman is done. Here comes Lone Rock, and here comes Tenfold up the inside, but really not making a lot of ground along the Treasure Trove. And if Lone Rock had not gone into the 5 path, he probably wins this race because he drifted. Carlos L hangs on at a huge price, and you see all the others back. And I don't even think Campaign is even in the screen. And you see the gallop out. Carlos L still wants to run here. So listen, you got to give credit to Carlos L. He won the race. It's not a horse that I had. It's not a horse that I would have had. Um, if I looked at it closely again, could I have had Carlos L? I mean, I suppose, but really he only would have been a C for me. I just didn't think he classed up. I didn't think he was the best speed in the race. But weird things happen at these mile-and-a-half races, and sure enough, Carlos L wired the field at 47 to 1 and knocked me out of our pick 5, and probably a lot of you as well, because after the race, I still, of course, was watching the races and I was doing more tweeting, etc. But Twitter was a little bit quiet after that race. I think a lot of people were sort of disappointed because their horizontal bets, at least, got knocked out of the park with Carlos L. So let's go ahead on now to the next stake race. See if I can talk on the day, and that is going to be the Hot Springs. Now, the Hot Springs was an excellent race. It was a rematch of the 1-2 finishers of the Breeders' Cup Sprint from last year at Keeneland, Whitmore and CZ Rocket. And sure enough, it happened to be exactly that way again, as Whitmore and CZ Rocket finished 1-2. But in this case, the results reverse as CZ Rocket, off the layoff, a fantastic trip, wins the Hot Springs over a very game Whitmore, who still has a lot left in the tank. Flagstaff, you can see, got third. Firecrow ran a surprising fourth. Boldor, who was sort of my sneaky pick, just didn't really fire. Finished fifth, and you see Engage and Mr. Jagermeister. Let's go ahead and watch the Hot Springs. Now, very interesting thing about the Hot Springs here. Flagstaff had blinkers on. I did not like Flagstaff the 2. I talked about Flagstaff in the preview. This horse has just been disappointing for me. And you can see the stablemate. This is what I thought might happen. The stablemate of Whitmore, the 5, goes to the lead here, Firecrow, and actually ran a pretty good race. And you see on the inside here, we'll see in a minute, that I think it was Joel Rosario, who was on the 2 Flagstaff, is trying to get this horse interested into the race. And Mr. Jagermeister, the 3, who I thought for sure would be up there battling with the 5, actually was not. So that was a bit surprising. And you see Flagstaff on the inside asking, engages in the 3 path there. Boldor, Whitmore, and CZ Rocket sitting very comfortably in their positions. And they're going, this is an honest pace. There's no question about it. Flagstaff is exactly where the connections would want them to be. They went 21-3 to the half. This figured to be at fast pace. And now you begin to see the closers making their move. You see Whitmore moving up there in fifth, the number 6, and CZ Rocket for Drew, just following Whitmore the entire way. And you see they go a very quick half in 44-3. In the top of the stretch, you really couldn't ask anything more for Whitmore. Whitmore got a perfect trip, and you see he blows by the favorites. But CZ Rocket just had more bottom. He was just the better horse on this day. He's got a little bit of a longer stride. They're battling out to the wire, 2 very good sprinters, and CZ Rocket just narrowly wins over Whitmore there and Flagstaff and all the rest, and what I thought was a fantastic addition of the Hot Springs. And the question you have to ask yourself, I think there's a few things that you have to talk about in this race. Number one, I did not like CZ Rocket in this race for a few reasons, frankly. Number one, before this race, CZ Rocket was 0 for 4 at Oaklawn. Now, 2 of those races were going a mile and 16th, and this horse is probably not a 2-turn horse. But even when he sprinted on April 30th for 40,000, when Peter Miller claimed him, he still didn't run well. So he was coming off a layoff as a 7-year-old, and a horse that really doesn't like Oaklawn, or at least it didn't appear that he liked Oaklawn. But I'll tell you what, you have to give an incredible amount of credit to Peter Miller, Florian Drew. They had this horse ready. This is now the newest millionaire in horse racing. And you can see he got a 98 buyer. That's the second highest buyer top, I believe, of his career. We can go ahead and take a look at it. No, he's actually run some 100 buyers early in his career, but that 98 is right, what he's been getting recently. So absolutely no regression whatsoever after a several month layoff. Again, a ton of credit to CZ Rocket. And I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, where does he go from here? There are some big races coming up. There's going to be a big race, of course, a month from now at Arkansas, and a sprint race that you think he's probably going to run in there. And then they may or may not, or they could wait until Churchill and run him in one of those races that they have. I believe they have a Churchill Downs handicap. I believe it's 7 furlongs, I believe, on Derby Day, if I'm not mistaken. So he might not want to go 7. I think he'll probably want to go 6 in the next race at Oaklawn. But again, ton of credit to the connections. I did not like CZ Rocket. I was already out of the pick 5 anyway, but really, you have to give a lot of credit to him. Boldor did not run well. I think the class showed up. He just wasn't classy enough and regressed off the big buyer top. And Flagstaff was Flagstaff. I really don't know what to say about this horse. He runs decent races, but he just doesn't win, at least not recently. They've tried him 7, they tried him 6. Maybe he just needs a drop down in class into like a grade 3, and maybe he's just a grade 3 animal at this point. I don't think he's capable of winning grade 1s right now unless something changes. Again, he's a nice horse, but he's going to be a bet against for me all the time against top class sprinters in this country. Now, let's take a look at the big race of the day. Now, you know about me on this show. I try to be very honest with my picks and my wagering, etc. I'm not going to deceive you out there. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. So, what happened to me on Saturday? Saturday was not a good day for me up until the Rebel. I was out of the pick 5. I did sit on my hands, like I said I would on the preview show. I sat on my hands. I did not bet anything but the pick 5, but I bet a pretty big pick 5, very close to the one that I showed you uh, onto the show. I mean, big for me, several $100s, and I was out of that. And I was debating whether to fire one more time in a race or just say, you know what, that's the way it goes. I'll move on. But I talked about on the preview show how much I loved Concert Tour, so I decided to go for it, and I went for it and smashed it and ended up breaking even for the day, actually winning a little bit for the day. So let's talk about the Rebel Stakes on Saturday. This was a grade 2, $1 million race. Unbelievable purses they're putting up at Oaklawn. This was for 3-year-olds. This was the prep for the Arkansas Derby that's happening 1 month from now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. We already know what happened in this race. Concert Tour for Bob Baffert and Gary and Mary West, those famed pink colors that we've seen throughout the country, especially out in California, uh, uh, predominantly, won this race. And Bob Baffert's other horse, Hosier, at almost 19 to 1, finishes second. And another price, Big Lake, at 18 to 1, finished third. And the reason why I decided to go ahead and make a bet in this race, there's 2 reasons. One, I really believed in Concert Tour. Again, this is not me playing Monday morning quarterback. If you don't believe me, go back and look at our Thursday preview show. I thought Concert Tour was going to win this race, and I thought Caddo River was completely overrated. And like I said, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. My opinions were not great on Saturday, frankly, up until this race, but it only takes one, and this is the one that did it for me on Saturday. I had a nice win bet on him, and I also played a large trifecta without Caddo River in second because I knew I wasn't going to get paid if I played a try with Concert Tour on top with Caddo River, and it worked out. The other reason I did not, the other reason I wanted to bet this race is because Concert Tour was not the favorite. You can see Caddo River was 1.2 to 1, and Concert Tour was 1.7 to 1, almost 9 to 5 when they broke from the gates, but went down to 8 to 5. Now, there's a lot to unpack in this race, so we need to talk about this race in quite a bit of detail. Now, before we talk about the race, let's just reestablish here. I thought that there probably was going to be some speed, but not as much speed in this race as it looked. Peter Miller, who trained the 4, who was coming off a layoff, who had showed a lot of speed in the past, he said he was not going to be blazing out there, and true to his word, the 4 did not send out hard. You know, Caddo River had speed. The only real speed in the race was the 5, who was coming off an allowance race, but I don't think he was blazing speed. Concert Tour the 7, and then the 8, who was the other Asmussen in this race, who was also coming off a layoff. But really, on paper, the best speeds certainly looked like the 1 and the 7. Now, what I thought was going to happen was Caddo River would get the lead, and Concert Tour would be about a length and a half sitting off him, and he would go by in the stretch. But at the start, and we're going to see, Joel Rosario was very aggressive, which I love, and Caddo River broke fine, but not perfectly, and everything changed about 4 or 5 seconds into the race. Let's go ahead and watch. So they break from the gate. Concert Tour is the 7. Caddo River, of course, is on the rail. And they break, and you see Caddo River was just a little bit slow, And you see Joel's asking on the 7. Now, let me freeze it right here. Now, I debated with a lot of people, and let me go back. Let me go ahead and go back to. I want to put myself on camera because this was a hot topic of debate on Twitter. In fact, I'm still debating with people on Twitter about this. And listen, I'm relatively new to Twitter. I mean, I've been on Twitter for a while, but I haven't really been active until I started my YouTube channel. And everyone is has the right to their opinion. But I, along with a few other people out there that I respect a lot, including Andy Serling and some others, have tried to say this time and time again that if Caddo River, at the spot that we're going to show again, if he decided to go ahead and just gun up the rail and battle with Concert Tour, he would have been nowhere to be found at the wire, and I completely agree with that statement. I have no problem with what Florent Giroux did with Cattle River. He ended up sitting a perfect trip, which we're going to go ahead and watch. And I really think that was the best decision because one, he got out broke slightly, and number two, it was clear that Joel Rosario wanted to have the lead, and he got it. So I have no problem with the ride with that Florent Giroux had on Cattle River. All the hatred out there for Giroux on this horse, I don't understand. Cattle River, I thought was overrated going into the race. He's definitely overrated now. Well, he's really not overrated. I really never thought he was that good in the first place, even though he won his last start by 10 lengths, but he beat absolutely nobody. So again, I don't have any problem with the ride and Florent Drew gave. I really don't think that was the issue at all. So let's go ahead. So right here, you can see Giroux decides to take back right here. Now, again, why is that not an issue? Because watch what happens. He eases out. The horse is not rank. The horse doesn't steady. Kettle River right now is comfortable sitting a perfect trip. I mean, I know if you're a Cattle River fan, and yes, I'm biased because I had Concert Tour, but I'm trying to look at this objectively. If you're a fan of Cattle River, okay, you don't get the lead, but you're sitting a perfect trip behind the horse you've got to beat. I mean, I'm not sure what else you would want other than getting a lonely lead. And I got news for you. Caddo River was not going to get an easy lead in this race, even if he got the lead, because there's no way Concert Tour was going to let him out of his sights. So again, we could have the conversation all day long. Yeah, Caddo River is pulling a little bit, but that's because they're slowing the pace down. So Joel Rosario gets a first quarter 23-2. Listen, that's an honest pace right there. See Big Lake in second, get her number. The Peter Miller horse is sitting there in fourth. Uh, in fifth. The 5 was in fourth. Keep her in mind, by the way. Keep me in mind. The 6 is in last, where you figured he would be. They go 47-2 to the half. And I want you to know something. Look at the ears right here. Look at the ears pricked on Concert Tour. He's just waiting his cue. And look at the ears on Cattle River. His ears are not up, they're not pricked. This is the first time I think that Cattle River realized that I'm in for a real battle. I'm not going to pass this horse easily. People think these horses are machines. These are living, breathing animals. They have feelings, they have emotions, they understand. They're smart animals. They know what kind of race they're in. And right now, Cattle River knows that he's in for a real challenge. And meanwhile, Concertor is just loving life there in the front, waiting for his cue by Rosario. So Cattle River, again, he's in a good spot. He's stalking. You see Big Lake in third, Twilight Blue in fourth. Keep Me in Mind makes this wide sweeping move. He's the 6 horse there on the outside, but is absolutely no threat in this race. And right here, you can see the jock on the 1, Cattle River Drew, is asking, while Drew is just sitting, or excuse me, where Rosario is sitting absolutely pretty. He hasn't even moved a muscle yet. He did float a little bit wide. Right there, Cattle River came out. I don't know if he was tired, but he came out a little bit and bothered the 2. And you can see now Joel asks a little bit. He looks back. He is in hand. This is an easy, easy win for Concert Tour. Spectacular. Hosier gets second. And again, in third was the 2 in this race, Big Lake. So let's just watch again here from the top of the stretch on, just one more time. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this a little bit. So you see again, Joel, now he goes a little bit wide. I don't mind that move. I don't know if he just didn't take the turn as well or is purposely trying to swing Kettle River out a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with that move. He was clear of everyone. And you see Hosier right here, who finishes second, gets a dream trip up the rail while everyone else is going wide. So I don't know if Hosier was really the clear-cut second in this race in terms of the kind of race that he ran. But give credit to Bob Baffert for sending this horse over there to get second money. And you see Big Lake was bothered quite a bit to two. I actually thought he ran the second best race of anyone. Keep Me in Mind is struggling here in the back of the pack without any real ability to close. And it comes 7-3-2 in the Rebel. And you see Caddo River finishing right there, 8 lengths behind. So what do I make of this race? Few things. First of all, I think Concertor is very talented. I said it before. I'll say it again. Is he a Kentucky Derby threat to win the race? I would say right now, no. I think Life is Good is just that much better than these horses. I think Essential Quality is better than Concert Tour. I would put right now Concert Tour probably in the same talent level as Greatest Honor, maybe a little more talented. But Greatest Honor has proven that he'll get the distance without a problem. Although I do think Concert Tour is also going to get the distance. So I think Concert Tour, if it continues to develop, will be one of those horses you might want to use underneath in the Derby. Is he a win candidate? I would have to say no right now. But fantastic training job by Bob Baffert to get this horse ready for this race. As he's on the Nadal track. Nadal won his first 2 races in California, a maiden, and then San Vicente, and then the Rebel. And this is exactly the same thing that Concert Tour has done. I would assume that Baffert will send Concertor back to Arkansas for the Arkansas Derby, and he should be a real threat there. Now, there's one other thing I do want to talk about Concertor. I think this horse will have the ability to close and rate. I talked with this on the show on Thursday, the preview show. Concertor in his recent work was taken back and blew by the horse that he was supposed to go by in the work. I know workouts are not the same as racing on the track, but I do believe Concert Tour will be able to close from behind. I do not think this is a speedball. He rated behind Freedom Fighter and went by him in the stretch. So I just think this was a circumstantial situation by Rosario to gun him to the lead. And you got to get points in the Derby. And now Concert Tour is in the Kentucky Derby with the 50 points that he received in the Rebel. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for joining me again on this Thursday. Don't forget, we need to have a big group of people joining this Thursday for my live stream on my YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central. We're going to go through the many stake races and the late pick 5 of a fantastic card at the fairgrounds in New Orleans that is occurring on Saturday. You don't want to miss this preview show on my YouTube channel. It's going to be live stream, so you can chat in comments and talk to me. It's going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, please make sure you hit that subscribe button right there in the corner of the screen. Please comment down below the video player anything that I discussed today or your thoughts from the weekend at Oaklawn this past Saturday. And I will see you again this Thursday night on my live stream. This is Howard Kravitz for Howard's Horse Handicapping. Thanks again. We'll see you on Thursday. Good night.